guys, welcome back to Off Topic with Caitlin
and Linnea.
And today we are going to be talking about singleness. But we are going to be talking about how you can actually benefit from singleness. Yay! All right, we know that was slightly cringy, but we enjoyed it.
We found these sound effects on the podcast machine, so
we were trying to make it a little bit more fun.
Anyways, but what we are talking about today is goodness and singleness, and how God can use us in our single years, and also how God can use us in a time when we're in a relationship with people.
Yeah, and how to not let your singleness go to waste.
All right, guys, let's get off topic.
Hey guys, as we mentioned in the intro, today's topic is goodness in singleness.
I'm sorry, I had to.
Anywho, so I'm going to start off. I have been in a relationship and Linnea has not.
But that's okay.
Yes, that is okay. So I'm just going to kind of talk about my experience with singleness compared to before going into a relationship and after, and kind of what I've learned from it. Because there's a lot of things that I didn't know before I got into a relationship that I know now. And it's also just kind of like weird because you spend all this time with a person for like years, and then all of a sudden they're not in your life, so it's like super weird going out and going on dates and stuff like that. But
right, and you also started dating when you were younger.
Yeah But anyhow, so let's get into it. So my first thing that I found was like a super good bullet point for this episode was being single allows for stronger relationships. Going into that, it allows for more time with God, more time with your family, more time with friends, more time to go and do what you want to do and not just base it upon like what this person wants to do, because, but you have more time to do kind of what you want to do, and it gives you time to grow these relationships, because when you get into just dating, like, you don't have as much time with your friends, especially when they're in relationships and they live far away.
Right.
But not only that, but when you get into a marriage, like, you're committed to each other. So you're going to have a lot less time with all these people. And this is like something I've learned to really cherish after getting out of a relationship, is like, now I have more time to spend with my family, who, like, who knows how long everyone's going to be around. Granted, like, we don't know when we're going to go and stuff like that. So it's made me realize that I can use being single as an opportunity to, learn more about my family, learn more about my friends, grow those closer bonds, so that when I am in a relationship, it's not like our relationship with my friends are going to be like brittle and it's just going to shatter once I get into a relationship. Like, I want to be able to create these really deep connections that I have already and just grow them even more, so that when I do get in a relationship, it's like one of those friendships where, like, you don't call every now and then, but once you do, it's like no time has passed.
Right.
And so that's something that I've really learned that I wanted to focus on, because I kind of mentioned in the last episode where I like struggled with knowing that I am loved and stuff like that. So before getting into a relationship, I kind of pushed my friends away. And actually, right before I got into a relationship, I actually started going out and, not worrying about whether they liked me or not and stuff like that. But that's kind of besides the point. But yeah, so that's something I definitely learned, especially because when I was in a relationship, I didn't spend a lot of time with my friends for specific reasons that I will not really talk about, because that'll be for a different episode. But, long story short, I grew really far apart from my friends, and I am beyond happy that I have this opportunity again. Like, Linnea and I were not super close beforehand. And literally ever since my breakup, if it weren't for my breakup, I don't think this podcast would exist. So thank the Lord for that. But no, it's allowed me to have so much more time to spend with my friends, so much more time to do what I want to do and figure out who I am, which goes on into another point that I had. Alone time. You have so much more alone time. And not just because you're not in a relationship, but if you think about it, when you're married, you're going to live with this person. You sleep in the same bed as this person. You go every single day almost with seeing this person. So like cherish this time that you get to have by yourself. I know a lot of people kind of struggle with like being alone and they don't like being alone. But when you're in a relationship, especially with people who like to be around each other all the time, you're going to have very little time to yourself. And if you don't cherish that time now, you're going to really wish you would have when you're in that relationship. And you don't get to do the things that you want to do. You don't get to learn who you are. And so just taking that time and figuring out what you want in life, what your identity is, what your purpose is, what you want your relationships to be like, you know, what you want your relationship to be like with your family, with your friends, and with possibly a significant other, you know? So just really taking that alone time and, you know, just using it to your absolute benefit. Because like I said, once you get into a relationship, more of your time goes into them. And as soon as you get married, more time goes into that than it did in just a relationship, because now you're supposed to be it as like one almost, you know?
And like that's not a bad thing either. Like it's good to be like, it's a blessing that you get to do that on both things. But I think when you're talking about like friendship, one thing I wrote down was cultivate deep friendships with people, because I know for me, like I love people a lot and I love people very deeply. And so I know if like I go into a relationship without having like a support system around me, and like kind of what you experience is just like dropping off all your friends and only like kind of thinking about like the relationship or just feeling guilty for having other friends in that, I think like that's even harder to be in a healthy relationship with somebody in the future if you can't have like your support system, like your friends and family.
And it's harder to like make friends while you're in a relationship because like you already have so much time committed to this person, plus you're like, well, I already have this one person who likes me, so why do I need to go out and make more friends? I know I was kind of like that. I'm like, okay, well, I have one person, and so that's good enough for me. But, you know, I think sorry. No, you're good. Go ahead.
But I just, like, I wrote down, I said, by creating those friendships now, you'll have a strong and healthy friendship that can grow even more when you enter a relationship with somebody. So I know, like, in the future, when I do enter in relationships, I know that, like, my friendship with Caitlin isn't going to drop off because
we've already created such a deep relationship.
Right. And there's foundation in that.
Exactly. And going into that, a part of the reason why I do feel like I dropped off my relationships with my friends when I got into a relationship with a guy, I think it was not only because of certain situations, but also because I didn't have these super deep friendships. Like, yeah, I've been friends with these people for like a lot of my life, but none of them are like deep and in real, you know. It's kind of like go to school, hang out, but it wasn't really super deep. And so as soon as a little bird started chirping in my ear, I listened to that person instead of the other one, also because I was so like,
you were younger.
Exactly. And naive. And so learning to trust those people while you're in a relationship, find good friends who can give you good advice when you're in a relationship and you know you can trust, instead of like friends who you don't necessarily trust and you're like, well, maybe they're just saying that, you know. And I feel like that was kind of, you know, there was a lot of drama when I was in high school, and so I had a lot of like trust issues with friends, and because they would say things about them, I'm like, okay, well, how can I trust them if they're saying all these things? And I mean, I'm human. I did the same thing where I would say things, and so it's like, you know, not being able to have that trust did not help. So just taking this time, creating good relationships, learning who you are without that person, you know, instead of, because I feel like a lot of people I would hear this when I was in high school. They would be like, okay, well, these people don't know what they are without that relationship because they've been in it since they were so young. And I'm like, see, that's the thing. Now you have that time to learn who you are without that person, as opposed to getting into a relationship, not knowing who you are.
Yeah.
And then having to like get out of the relationship, figure out who you are, going through that trouble, possibly getting back together with that person. And it's all just kind of a mess. So like, you know, be confident in who you are, who your identity is in Christ, and your calling. And, you know, sometimes you don't get your calling until later in life, which is fine. But,
right. And I think we're always being called to different things. So it's like, it's a blessing that while you're single, you have like, you do have a lot of time. And what I've learned from like being single and never really like truly experiencing like a full relationship with somebody, like I've talked to people in the past and I've had like somewhat on and off things, but it's never been like a fully committed like relationship to each other. But what I've learned is that like getting to know somebody takes a lot of your time. And when I was getting to know somebody without really knowing who I was first was really hard, because it created like, it made me feel so conflicted. So what I've like learned from a lot of the things in the past is like, okay, I know who I am, I know my values, I know my standards, and I know like this is who I am, this is like my authentic self, this is the Linnea that you're going to see in a friendship, but also in a relationship. Like it's not a facade of who I want to be. And that's one thing I think that I've learned and that I'm hoping to continue to keep growing in, is just being your genuine self when it comes to friendships and stuff, because nobody wants to like date somebody that they don't know. Like, I want to know the guy that I'm going to date someday and marry someday. So I think being genuine and having that, like, you're authentic and you're not putting on who you want to be in a relationship.
Just so you can get, like, to be with that person.
Yeah, right.
You know? Going into that, I feel like something along that lines was because I didn't know who I was before I went into that relationship, and like halfway through the relationship, I got really bad. I started dealing with severe anxiety, and because I didn't know who I was. And so I started having these anxiety attacks where I'm like, okay, well, do I just like these things because, you know, he likes it and I want him to be happy? And so it was like so conflicting. And the like entire end of my relationship, I was like, who am I? I literally was like posting on my private story. I'm like, I don't even feel like I have a personality, because I like legit did not know if I just like these things because he liked them or if this was something I actually enjoyed, because, you know, up until after we broke up, I didn't really have any like super big interest, and now I do. And I'm like, I don't feel so lost. And I'm like, okay, well, I know what I want to do with my life. I know the things that genuinely bring me joy. And I also know that I don't have to change myself for another person.
Right. And
which is amazing, because, you know, the stress of going through that and being like, okay, well, he doesn't like this, so then I need to be better about that. Like,
right.
That shouldn't be the case.
Exactly. And also, like, the thing is, not all relationships are like that. Like, obviously, Caitlin had, like, it didn't end out the way she wanted it to. And obviously, that guy needed a lot of maturity he needed to mature a lot and, like, a lot of things. But also, like, in a relationship, I feel like the guy and girl, there will be so much mutual respect for each other. There's going to be encouragement and like desire to get to know each other's interests.
And it's gonna be an actual, yeah. And it's like an actual relationship. Like, a relationship isn't supposed to be a one-way street where it's like all about one person.
Right.
And that's something you have to keep in mind, is like, that's kind of like on a note that I have, is like improvement and kind of like wisdom almost in your singleness, like learning how to be good in a relationship, you know, and learning to become the best version of yourself before you get in that relationship. Like, don't wait to find the right guy to start working on yourself. And don't work on yourself for a guy. Like, just work on yourself for yourself.
And same thing for guys about girls, too. We're just talking from a girl's perspective, obviously.
Yes.
But same thing for guys. Another thing I wrote down was resolve to never stop. And this is actually something I've been reading in my book. It's by Ben Stewart. My friend's mom actually bought it for me while I was at camp. It's called Single, Dating, Engaged, Married. And it has opened my eyes so much about, like, what it's like to be single and like the joys that we get in that. And then I'm in the chapter about being engaged, and it's just been so good and eye-opening. But in the like singleness part, it was talking about resolving to never stop, and that kind of was like, okay, what does that mean? And so it was talking about how like your mission for Christ is like an ongoing mission. Like you're always on a walk with Christ. And so I think that's like a really big thing for me is like I love missions so much. And I actually texted Caitlin. I saw this like TikTok of this girl, like she was in Africa.
This was literally yesterday too.
And I was just like, she just was like, I love missions. And it was this little kid running to her, just giving her a big hug. And like she actually got to share the gospel with him. I was like, Caitlin, I desire to do missions so much. She's like, what's stopping you? And I was like, oh, like what is stopping me? And I think it's just fear, but like that's a different topic. But like resolving to never stop like desiring what you want to do, but also like don't let like people come in and out of your life, but don't let that stop you from doing what God's called you to do. If you feel a mission for something, a mission can be anything you want. Like your life is a mission field and we're constantly called into that. When we are Christians, we're living in a mission field and your life is a constant mission field. Oh my goodness.
Amen.
Amen. But we're called to live a life doing missions work for the Lord. And I think don't let something stop you. Don't let, toxic friends or relationships or anything stop you from where God has called you, especially in singleness. Like in your young adult years and like right out of high school, there's a lot of big decisions that you have in your life about college and scholarships and jobs and like your future and career. But also there's so much goodness in that because it's exciting. Like, I think it's so exciting not knowing the future sometimes, but also it's super fearful. Like, I'm fearful, But I think trusting God where he leads us in our singleness is very important to do because if we're not trusting him in our singleness, how are we going to trust him in relationships?
Exactly. Another point that I had was learning to be alone. Mm-hmm. And this was something that I struggled with beforehand. I struggled with in my relationship because before my relationship, I was alone all the time because either A, I didn't really have friends, or B, I was pushing my friends away that I did have because I felt like they didn't like me. And then once I got into a relationship, in the beginning, I had all these friends and I had my boyfriend at the time. And so I was like, oh, this is just great. And then when I wasn't like, I don't know how to say this other than kind of like watering the relationships and keeping up with everything. And I was either just pouring all of my water into one vase that the other flowers were dying and the other relationships were dying, that it was like, then I was alone and I didn't know how to be alone because I'm so used to having these people. And so like, you're not going to be with your significant other all the time. So learning to be like by yourself and kind of going into who you are when you're alone is something that is so beneficial in a relationship and in singleness because you're so much more content. Like learning how to do things on your own. Like I remember when my relationship had just ended and I was so proud of myself because throughout my entire relationship and kind of beforehand, I hated doing things alone. I thought it was embarrassing, blah, blah, blah. But now I go on walks by myself. I take myself to the beach. I go on coffee dates with myself.
And just take yourself to Starbucks.
Yeah. And it's like, I used to hate doing that, but now I love it. It's just like, it's something I find so much joy in. So learning how to be on your own and kind of like function on your own. Because like I said, your significant other's not always going to be there. And, if you end up breaking up with them, you might feel slightly lost without them. And, that's just going to kind of like confuse you and stuff like that, like it did for me. And so just really learning how to be alone and by yourself without that person, it's super beneficial.
I think alone time of any kind is healthy. Like, you need to know yourself. It's good to have a girls' day or whatever guys do. Like, spend time alone, but also spend time. For me, I don't like being alone, but I like being alone with somebody, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah,
I like being alone, but also like, can you just sit in the room with me so that we can be alone together?
And that's what I think is like a really good friendship where you can just like hang out and not even talk.
Right.
And just
you can just be together and laugh and stuff, but also be like,
it's just like the comfort of having somebody there.
Right.
But that's what I'm kind of like talking about. Like somebody's not going to always be there. So you don't want to have to keep relying on like your friends. Like even when you are single, you don't want to be constantly relying on your friends or your family. Like, I'm so used to being alone now that I'm like okay with it. So now when I get into a relationship, I feel that I'm not going to have to depend on this person all the time to be there for me. Like, I can be alone, but also,
Don't seclude yourself.
Yeah, don't go into like some deep dark hole and just be like, nobody talk to me, blah, blah, blah. Just find alone time. Don't be constantly spending time with people. Give yourself time to rest and just kind of like recuperate. Remember who you are. Remember the things that you like to do. Take yourself out on a date by yourself. You don't have to spend all of your time by yourself, but just learning how to like do that is super, super important.
Do you want to go next or me?
I just gave a point, so you can go.
One of them that I wrote down was also from the book that I've been reading is investing in the next generation. And I think this is so important when we are in our young adulthood years. We have a lot of time. Like, we might say that we don't have enough time, but on a Sunday night, I know there's time, like 2 hours that you guys can spend being in youth ministry or student ministry or serving in the church. Because what I have learned so much through high school and through college is how much I enjoy being able to love on people younger than me. Like, I love being able to like care about what they're interested in and being able to go to like their plays or football games or soccer games for my students, because I know like even if it's just something small to me, like that could be impacting them, saying, oh, Linnea came to my soccer game, and like that, I just want that to be encouraging to them. But I think investing in the next generation is so important. Even if you are like younger, like you can still help in church ministries and stuff like that. But that also goes along with like service in the church, which I think is very important in your singleness too. Also, like for me, I cannot wait to like serve the Lord with like my future husband, or like being able to do that. Just like knowing that he desires the same, like, I don't know how much joy comes out of that. But anyways, that's just my like fantasizing. I don't know, I can't speak, but it's fine. But yeah, like the book was talking about how even Paul was a mentor to Timothy, and how like Timothy looked so much up to Paul and like all of his biblical teaching and understanding and stuff like that. And he really taught him how to teach the churches and how to be like, Timothy was in a very high position of like authority when it came to sharing the gospel, and Paul was like so ready to equip him and give him wisdom. And I think that's what God's calling us to do in our single years, but also like when he does bless us with relationships, like how we get to do that together as a couple, but also how are you experiencing that now as like a single,
Yeah, I feel like, and with that, you also have to have your own relationship with God. Obviously, like, you have a relationship with God with your significant other, but you also have to create that with yourself. And, like, what are you doing by yourself through the church and through others? Not just, like, through the relationship itself. Because if that relationship's gone, then you're like, what do I do now? So, obviously you don't always want to be concerned about like, okay, but what if this relationship's end? But like, you just want to be able to be ready for that, because odds are not every single person you date is somebody you're going to marry. Granted, it would make life so much easier, but that's just not the case. And I'm not saying that like your first boyfriend won't be your future husband, but just knowing that you are secure in yourself, that if you're doing life without this person, you'll be fine. You'll be able to do everyday life and not being in constant depression and be like, what am I doing, and stuff like that. Just having security in yourself. A point that I had was, don't wait for a guy to start your life. And
same thing for guys, for girls.
Yes, obviously. Sorry. We're girls, so we're just kind of like used to like talking to other girls. So,
but I know like the 3 guys that listen to our podcast.
To any of the guys that are listening to this, like just kind of like translate what we are saying in bro code or whatever, Anywho, but just
bro
going. I don't know what to say. Anywho, but not waiting to find a significant other to start your life. Don't wait to find a boyfriend or a husband to start your career, to save up for a house, a vacation, a car. Don't wait to experience things with your significant other. Obviously there are certain things that you should be, that should be experienced in a marriage, but go and see the world. Don't be like, well, I just want to wait until I'm in a relationship so I can go and do this. Well, what's stopping you from doing that now and in a relationship?
Like, enjoy the time that you have now. Because, I don't know, like, I just think it's so fun to go do stuff. Like, I'm going to go do things that if it's what the Lord calls me to do, yeah, I might be a little hesitant, but I'm going to be like, okay, what's holding me back? What's the fear that's holding me back? But also, like, I think it's important to experience life with, like, your friends, you know? Like, go do fun stuff. Go on friend trips. Go to the beach together. Go do things that's going to bring you joy now, because then you get to bring that and say, okay, this is what I'd like to do. Like, think about how many cute little dates you can go on with the things that you already know that you enjoy because you did it with friends and family, and then you can say, hey, this is what I really enjoy with my friends and family. Can I, like, you get to share that with them. And I think that's so fun.
Exactly. And not only that, but, like, how is you making these experiences with your friends gonna hurt your relationship in the future? It's not.
Yeah, like, so it's just beneficial. It's just fun.
Exactly. It's creating more memories. It's using the time that you have now to be joyful and do things that you enjoy. Because, like I said earlier, when you're in a relationship, it's supposed to be like a 50-50 thing. Like,
right.
So you're not always going to get to do the things that you enjoy doing with your friend that you are going to go. You're not going to always be doing that with your husband or your boyfriend. So go do the things that you can do as a single person now and enjoy that and experience that. Because, not to make it sound like a tied down thing, right. But, like, it's just the truth. And, like, you can still find joy in a relationship, but, also still not be doing everything that you want to do. Just take this time and do what you want to do and enjoy your life and figure out who you are and start your career. Save up for the car, save up for the house, save up for the future, whatever. Just do it. Don't let a guy hold you back from that. Don't let, what if I meet my future husband?
Right. Like, it shouldn't be a contingency in your life. Like, I'm going to start doing this once this happens. If we lived our life like that, we would literally be nowhere. Exactly. I'm going to start driving when I feel like I should. Like, you're going to take driver's training when you're, 15, 16? I don't even know. I think that's the age. I don't even know. It's like years ago. But
I was 12 years old.
No, but, like, you're going to take driver's training and you're going to learn how to drive. Like, don't put it off because, like, for a stupid reason. Like,
just in case.
Yeah, just in case something else happens.
Okay, but that's such a good point because that was something I actually struggled with in the relationship. And I was like, okay, well, I don't want to end this just in case. And I'm like...
It's like your backup plan.
And then it just kept kind of, like, stringing along. And I wasn't happy. And that's, like, going into singleness. Like, don't just keep pushing things off just in case something else may happen and ruin your plans.
Because that kind of tied into, like, when we talked about, like, what was it? Did we talk about, like, fear in the future and stuff like that?
Yeah, like, don't let the fear of the future hold you back from doing things. Just...
take advantage of the time you have now.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Something else that I had was meet new people. Because as I said...
cultivate friendships.
Yes. It can be hard to go out and find the time to meet new people when you're in a relationship because you also have these friendships that you're trying to keep above water. Not saying it's not possible, but it's definitely more difficult. So, like, take the time to go meet friends, to find small groups, find community and stuff like that. Like, use your time wisely. That, I think, is, like, the biggest thing I could say about this episode and for singleness. Use your time wisely being single. Don't just sit around waiting for a guy to sweep you off your feet.
Because Prince Charming will come, but don't be like a damsel in distress saying, oh no, I'm like dying over here, somebody come save me. And guess what? Sometimes a guy might not come and save you.
Exactly.
That's the truth. And I know a lot of people who have lived their life totally single. Like, think about Paul. My guy was in prison and he was like, praise Jesus. Like, I want to be like him if I'm single for the rest of my life.
God doesn't promise us a relationship. He never says you will get married.
Right. But guess what? If that does happen, let it be a blessing. Like, for me, I know I might cry my eyes out if, like, I'm never in a relationship, but you know what? If that's what God wants for my life, then I want to be faithful to that. But also, like what Caitlin was saying, build those friendships now, because in a relationship, then
you're going to need them.
Yeah, you're going to need them, and you, like, guys, have good, strong men in your life, and women, have good women of God in your life, because then you can go to them and know, like, they're going to give you encouraging words from the Lord and biblical advice. One thing I wrote down was point number 4. At least
sounds like my church. It's like point number 4.
But one thing I wrote down is that we have been called out of darkness. While we are all still single, or while we are single, we have so much time to be a light in the world. We can come together as Christian singles to be a light in the darkness. And I think sometimes it's easy to just be stagnant and be like, okay, I'm just going to be like a little lightning bug on and off sometimes. But we need to be like a big flashlight in the world. We need to be shining our like light for Christ and letting that be, let that be the difference that people see in you is, oh my goodness, like she's literally glowing. I see some people and I meet some people and I genuinely feel like they're like glowing people because they've got such a joy of the Lord in their heart and it's like captivating to be around. Like they just bring so much life into the room and into your life that why wouldn't you want to live like that? Like that's so encouraging to be around. Be around people who are going to uplift you, but also be that light to people. Because I don't know. I just think it's so important to be a light in the world because our world's so dark right now. It's just really disgusting to live in. It's so sinful. And so let God be like the flashlight in your heart. It's like,
what is that one Bible verse where it's like the light to my path or something? Like God is the light to my path. I don't exactly remember what it is.
It's like what we said in the last episode. Don't be a freaking light stand with a bowl on top if nobody can see you.
And not only that, but don't pretend to be something you're not. Like, don't pretend.
Don't be a glow stick because the light is artificial. Dude, that was so good. I'm so proud of myself for that. Please don't laugh at me. I'm so proud of myself for that.
No, but that's so true. Like, don't pretend to be this, like, bright, shiny, happy person when you're single just so that you can make yourself look better.
Right.
Like, find that joy. It's so much better than like putting on a facade and pretending to be something or someone you're not. I mean, like obviously there are days where you kind of just have to like fake it till you make it, but like don't live your life like that.
Yeah.
Don't think that you're gonna find joy in a guy, because that's not the truth. The only guy you should be finding joy is in Jesus.
We have to stop.
We're having too much fun with this. No, but it's so true. I mean, like you said, our life is not based upon some guy. Like it shouldn't be based upon this. You are the one person that you spend your entire life with, other than obviously Jesus. But enjoy it. Find what you enjoy, Enjoy the little things.
Because somebody's going to find that in you, and they're going to see that, and it's just going to be so beautiful in their eyes. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, Caitlin loves this. Caitlin loves football, and I love football, and I love how much she loves football. So, like, just imagine, like, think about the things that you really enjoy, and being able to share that with somebody in the future, because you are already enjoying it now. Like, obviously, Caitlin and I love our podcast. It's just, like, to have a guy in the future be like, oh my gosh, that's incredible that you're doing that. Like, full support.
And we're not doing it to, like, be like, oh my gosh, look at her. Like, she's such a good Christian, blah, blah, blah. Like, she's such a good person for doing that. That's so cool. Like, she achieved that. And I'm like, I'm not doing that for the attention. Like, you have to do it for yourself. Because if you don't and you start, like, pretending to be someone you're not, you're going to be so miserable, especially when you're in this relationship, because this person obviously liked you because you had similar interests and stuff like that. But if you're not really like that, you're going to be miserable your entire life.
Right. Like, be genuinely you. And, like, we kind of talked about that in the last podcast, but it's like, I love genuine people, and I love, like, especially when I meet a guy who's, like, sometimes, I'll be so honest, sometimes you guys are mean, and guys are just jerks sometimes, but girls can be horrible too. But I hate meeting new guys, and they're just, like, so fake, and they just put on a facade of, like, everything that they're not. And that's just so disgusting to me. Like, I don't want to meet somebody who I don't know in a friendship. So I think one thing that I've really enjoyed recently is, like, being able to get to know good guys in, like, a group setting, but also, like, through ministry through ministry opportunities, and, like, young adults groups and stuff, because I can see you with your friends, and I can hear about, like, yourself a little bit without it being, like, singling out one guy and be like, okay, who are you? Like, it's good to meet people in groups and stuff, but also see their genuine self and how they treat people around them, you know?
Yeah. Something that I was just thinking about is like, oh my gosh. No, I didn't forget something. I know that's what you were thinking too.
You're like, here we go again.
No, but like I was just thinking back when I was in high school and we would go to camp and we would be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to meet the love of my life here. Like, and that was like sometimes all we would think about.
Right.
Like, and not
Guilty.
just distracting you from your life and living it. Mm-hmm. Like, me looking back on like when I was younger and just being like, I want to meet a boyfriend, and I would literally post all the time, I'm single, blah blah blah, nobody likes, and it was so annoying. Like my friends would tell me, and I'm like, I knew it was annoying, and then I'd cry about it because I was embarrassed. But it's just not worth it. You only get so much time here on this earth, and like make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
Like
Live your life.
It's a gift. Mm-hmm. And do what you can while you can. Mm-hmm. No, but I don't know. That's just kind of my thought. I think that I truly do think that singleness is a gift. It can be hard sometimes and lonely, and I know that looking at other people in relationships can be really hard. And it can just be hard after getting out of a relationship and you kind of knowing what it's like to have a person, even if it wasn't the greatest relationship. Like, it's still hard. You're like, wow, I miss doing this with somebody and I miss doing that. But like, don't reminisce in the past all the time. Focus where you are now and be like, okay, what can I do now to better myself, not only for a relationship? I just had deja vu.
Deja vu.
No, but it really is a gift. I truly think that it is. Like I said, it can be hard sometimes and lonely and suck, but you don't
to
have
find the goodness in singleness.
I have to stop. This is bad. But no, I mean, I'm just being honest. Like,
Yeah.
if you ask anyone, do you think anyone is truly always happy about being single?
No.
But you don't have to be sad and depressed about it all the time. Your life doesn't revolve around whether or not you're dating someone or whether or not you're married. Like, that's
Right.
not what the point of living is. Like,
Because if you think about it, like, you grew up and you're fine, and, like, obviously, like, once you get to high school, dating becomes, like, such a big
and that's
thing,
because
like,
it's like a thing that the world views as what we were talking about.
Success.
Success. Like
you're in a
finding a
relationship,
relationship.
yep.
And that's not the truth. Just because you're not in a relationship doesn't mean you're not successful in life. Like,
right.
find ways to be successful by not being in a relationship. And be okay not being in a relationship. Like, that is something I wish I would have told myself when I was younger. Like, it's
Right.
okay to not be in a relationship.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of great. Like, you get to do whatever you want. Like,
And there's just not
obviously
as
to
much
certain
drama.
Exactly. You're not, and it's like you're concerned about this person. And don't get me wrong, it's amazing getting to like care about people, like just like through friendships. Like,
Right.
it's so amazing. Like, I love being able to be like checking in on my friends and doing things for my friends. It brings me so much joy to care for them. But like, you also, if you end up dating someone and marrying them, you're kind of not stuck in like a bad way, you know what I
But,
mean?
like, you get to live life with them for the rest of
Exactly.
their life,
So-
and they're your person.
enjoy your life while you're single. Because there's going to be time in the future, as long as it's like God willing, to enjoy time in that relationship.
Right.
And don't just sit here and wallow and be like, oh, I'm not in a relationship and I just wish I was and it's not fair. And,
Yeah.
okay, move on.
Get over it.
Get over it. As Linnea would say, get over yourself.
Right, yeah.
Like, no, it's just like, it's not, there's no point. It's so pointless to just sit here and be like, I wish I had a boyfriend. And I'm not saying it's like not okay to be sad. Like, obviously
Yeah.
cry about it every once in a while.
Right.
Feel your feelings. But
Because
don't,
it's like it's valid to feel lonely, and it's
Yes.
like I've experienced those
and
things.
it's
I'm just-
human.
Yeah, and you have to experience that. Like, you can't force yourself to not experience that, because we're supposed to be so happy. Like, yes, the Lord gave us emotions for a reason, so might
Exactly.
as well use them.
But just don't pretend like you're like this super happy cheery person. Like,
Right.
feel your feelings, but then move on from it, because it's not your life.
Right.
It's not the center of your life.
Right. And another big thing that I think is so important, kind of like finishing up, is prayer. I think praying for your future spouse is such a blessing towards the future spouse. I have a Dear Future Husband journal that I've tried to write in consistently, but it's been like a couple months and stuff. But I think it's so special to know, like, someday my husband's going to get to see all the letters that I wrote to him over, like, years of my life as being a single girl and, like, single young adult. But I've written things for, like, prayers and the things that I like to do and how, like, I desire for him to have a relationship with the Lord. So be praying consistently for your future spouse, because that's a blessing to them now. Like, I want my future husband to know that I care for him already, even if I don't know him yet. Like, I don't know. I don't know who my future husband's going to be, but I know that the Lord can use that to, like, bless him now. And I think that's so special. Like, just, I imagine that my future husband would be praying for me too now. As, like, you know, I'm 20 years old, and I hope that there's that, I don't know how to explain it, but just that mutual, like, prayer for each other before we've even met. And then if we get in a relationship, saying, oh yeah, I've prayed for you since, you know, whatever. Like, how special would that be? I think prayer is so important in that. And, like, be praying for your future spouse. Be praying that the Lord can help you grow as an individual and in your singleness, and that he can call you to different missions and call you to different things. But, like, just don't get stagnant in, like, the same prayer. Like, dear God, please help me to find a future husband. Amen. Like, that's not God's...
Be intentional with it.
Right. Like, let it be something you care about and that you genuinely want to see in the future. Like, be praying that the Lord will bless you in that specific thing, and you'll be able to see, like, the benefits from that someday when you're married.
And be patient with it. Like, you don't have to rush it either.
Right.
Like, going into kind of like what that Bible verse said last episode, like, love is patient. So don't rush it if you want it to last forever.
Snaps.
Thank you.
Anyhow. I would hit the applaud button, but
we've done it too many times.
We've done it too much.
To kind of just wrap up this episode, in singleness, I'm just going to say it. Singleness can suck, but it doesn't have to be the wholeness of it.
Right.
It doesn't have to be this big, terrible thing. It's actually, you know...
a blessing.
It is. It really is. It is a gift. And enjoy it. Find out what you want to do with your life. And start it now. Don't wait to find your quote-unquote Prince Charming. Don't wait. Create those relationships with people. Go and find people to be friends with.
Right.
Find groups to hang out with, and, you know,
build that community.
Exactly. You know, use your time wisely while you're single and your alone time, and learn to be okay being alone. And that relationships aren't some successful thing that you have to do in life. Like, that's not what your life is about.
Right. And another thing is like, read scripture, because God's going to show you, like, he talks about marriage in the Bible, and he talks about, like, Paul's testimony, and, like, read how God used people, specific people in singleness, and then he applied and equipped them for the future, and he was able to use specific people like Paul to share the gospel even though he was in chains, and even though he was single his whole life, God used him. And so just because, you know, you might be single now, it doesn't mean that God's gonna not use you now. Like,
and it doesn't mean that you're not worthy of something, that
right.
You're not, you know, I feel like this is kind of a little tangent, and I know we gotta wrap up this episode, but just because you're not in a relationship doesn't mean you're any less worthy of something than somebody that is in a relationship. Like, it doesn't make you damaged. It doesn't
right.
make you some garbage of a person, you know?
Right.
But, yeah, that's kind of my last note. Any more takes?
I don't think so. Yeah.
we just really hope you guys are able to take away something from this episode, from our experiences and our kind of notes. Singleness, you know, you can let it be a gift if you wanted to. That's going to be completely up to you. No one can force you to make that decision other than, you know, yourself.
Right.
So enjoy it while you can, and
let it be a blessing to others,
yeah.
And you can be a blessing to people too through your years in singleness.
Exactly.
But all right, guys, we will see you next time.
Bye.